We are first going to start off with some announcements. So thank you everyone for coming. I know there are more people coming in as we're talking, but we just want to make sure that we have enough time for the entire presentation and for questions at the end. So, let's see. Some upcoming events that we are going to have include a community service event on November 20th from 10 to 12. It's going to be with Mission Arlington. If you have any questions about that, you can ask our community service chairman, Coco. I'm sure she would be glad to answer any questions. Reminder that dues are due on November 23rd. If you haven't paid yet, just do your best to work that out with our treasurer, Angelica, if you guys know her. Our final announcement is that we are going to have a guest speaker today. If you guys weren't aware, this isn't going to be just like every other general body meeting. This is going to give us some helpful information, especially to those that are thinking about applying to Texas A&M for law school. And before we get started, these are kind of some of the basic ground rules. So during this presentation, we are requesting that you keep your cameras and mics off and save all questions to the end. After the presentation, you'll be able to either send your questions in the chat, or if you're feeling brave, you can ask them yourselves. And so, without further ado, we have Miss Natalia Cashin, who works with the Texas A&M Law School Admissions Department, and she's here to tell us about the process of applying to A&M.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and howdy everyone. As we mentioned, my name is Natalia Cashin. I am one of the admissions advisors at Texas A&M School of Law. Today with me is also Amanda Zander. She is our recruiter, and she just joined us in March, but she's had an extensive background in recruiting before she joined us. We're really happy to have her on board. If you connect with our admissions office, you might also speak with Jeff Green. He is our assistant director. And then we have sometimes some seasonal recruiters and student ambassadors that work with us. So it's a pretty busy office, but we're all very excited to connect with prospective students. I am a graduate of the law school. I actually started when it was Texas Wesleyan, and then it became Texas A&M my last year. And I then practiced immigration law. I was recruited by the dean at the time to come back and work in career services. So I did that for about almost 3 years, and then I've been in admissions now for almost 3 years. So I've been around at the law school for a long time, and I'm excited each year to meet new prospective students and help you all through the process of applying to law school. So today, I really wanted to talk about how you can apply to law school and then why you should apply to Texas A&M as some of your options. And you know, there are a lot of things that we could talk about in the application process. In fact, in a little bit, I'm going to show you a picture of a link to our website, which includes an hour-and-a-half long presentation that Jeff and I did about the application process. And I would encourage you, no matter where you are in the application cycle, to watch that video, because it goes through all of the things that are listed right now on the PowerPoint in detail. And it really gives you a lot of insight into what we're looking for as an office. There are a lot of things in the admissions process that are unique to certain admissions offices. So when I was applying to law school, I was a first-gen law student who didn't really know what I was doing. And while my family was very supportive of my endeavor to go to law school, we just didn't know where I could get information and how much information was available. And so I hope that if you get anything from this presentation, it's that you know, all law school admissions offices have a ton of information on their websites, and their offices are very open to receiving calls and emails and inquiries from prospective students. And so the more that you become self-directed and use your information seeking skills to connect with different admissions offices, you should be able to get a lot of really great information that should help your application. And so I'm going to run through a couple of these things that are on the slide right now so that you can be aware of kind of tips and tricks that I wish I had known when I was applying. But in terms of the full bulk of the application process, I would recommend that you go watch our video and spend some time doing that before you submit your application. So one of the things that's unique about Texas A&M is that we offer the LSAT or the GRE as one of our reportable exams. And so if you are, you're dead set on going to law school and you know that's what you want to do when you graduate, I would highly encourage you to look at the LSAT. It's the exam that's accepted at all law schools. And so it gives you the most flexibility when you're looking to apply to law school. If you are in between your career choices, you're thinking about maybe getting a master's, maybe going all the way down a PhD route, you're not really sure what you want to do and law school might be one of your options, the GRE allows for more flexibility because more programs offer the GRE as a reportable exam as part of their program. And so the GRE would allow you to maybe apply to some MBA programs as well as law school as you're trying to decide what you want to do. Other than that, our office will review applications with either score the same way. So we don't have a preference. What I will tell you is that you should select a exam and focus your studying and your efforts on taking that exam and submitting it. It's not like college admissions where you take your ACT, your SAT, and you see which one got a better score and then you submit that. We receive every LSAT score as you apply. And so if you want to be considered with the GRE only, you don't want to take the LSAT because then we'll see that score. So again, just think through what your priorities are and what your goals are, select an exam, and then put all of your effort and time and studying into those exams. When to apply? So this is one of those tricky things, right? Because our application opens September 1st and runs through May 31st. And so, any logical person could conclude that you should apply somewhere between September 1st and May 31st. But law school admissions are a rolling admissions process. And so that means that as we receive applications, we review those applications and we make decisions. And so, in fact, it is important to be thinking about applying as early as you can in the cycle. Now, I'm going to say that again because most students, when they hear apply early, they think they need to apply as early as possible no matter what. And that's not true. Every applicant is different. We want you to apply with your best application. And so if your best application means you need to wait a little bit longer to apply to get a better LSAT score, to get a better letter of recommendation, to finalize your personal statement, then you should be working towards your best application as soon as you can. And so we have on our website a couple of early decision deadlines. We have one coming up December 7th. We'll have one coming up in February and one in March. And all that those deadlines do is that it gives you a secure time in which you're going to receive a decision. And so for students who really want to know by January 10th that they, whether they've been admitted or denied or waitlisted, you can apply by those deadlines and then receive your decision by the projected deadline that we give you. And so it'll be really important for you to be looking at each law school, all of the deadlines, when the application's open, and then talking to the law schools about what their rolling admissions process looks like and what makes the most sense for when you're ready to apply. Sometimes when I'm counseling students, that means that you're going to wait and apply for a following cycle and not the cycle that you're in right now. A lot of times we get seniors who realize in their senior year that they really want to go to law school. It's what they want to do when they graduate. And so sometimes you're able to study for your exam, take your exam, get your application materials in time. But sometimes you're pretty late into the cycle because you've made that decision late. I often tell students, if you really want to be a lawyer, there's really isn't a rush. If you can't wait a year and get your application to be its best and submit it, then you might not be cut out for law because there's a lot of patience required. It's a lot of hard work. And so if you're going through your application cycle and you've just now realized that you want to apply and you feel a little behind, just know that you have multiple options. You don't just have to apply this year. You could wait next year and focus on getting your best application forward. For personal statements, resumes, recommendations, and addendums, those are all specific parts of the application that each have their own sets of issues and what we're looking for. I would really recommend looking at our video for that. But my tip for those general things is going to be very thoughtful about each part of the application process and think about it as puzzle pieces that you're putting together to give us a holistic view of who you are. So each part of your application doesn't have to do everything. So your personal statement, your diversity statement are two different things, and you can utilize them and be strategic on how you're going to highlight different parts of you through that application process. The last two things, connect with your schools and choosing a school, is really important. As I said, when I applied, I did not really reach out to admissions offices. Most of our offices, pre-COVID had a lot of information sessions and events on campus where you could hear from students and faculty members and things like that. Those are so crucial because it's the best way to really learn about the culture and the environment of a law school, and not just the program and content that we put on our website. Since COVID, we've worked really hard to make sure that students have that same access to information, even though it's not in person. So if you visit, we have a page called Connect With Us on our website, and it lists out different information sessions, student panels, an opportunity to talk to a student ambassador. We'll have information from faculty members as well. And so really utilizing those Zoom sessions, even though I'm sure we're all very tired of being on Zoom and WebEx and all of those features, it's the only way that you're going to get a feel for the schools that you're looking for. So I really encourage you to do those things, because without connecting with those schools, it'll make it really hard to choose the right school for you. So here is a picture of the Applying to Law School 101. It's on our website. As I mentioned, please make sure to watch this video. It's super helpful. If you watch this video and you still have a ton of questions, you have the opportunity to email us and set up a time to talk to one of our admissions advisors, and we can answer any specific questions you have as it relates to your specific application. Another thing that's important to think about is going to be, all the statistics and data that you can find for each law school. So as you're thinking about, why am I going to choose, Texas A&M or any other school in Texas, or maybe a school outside of Texas, most students gravitate towards the things that are listed on the screen right now. They look at, LSAT and GPA medians. They look at the gender diversity, ethnicity diversity, and a lot of programs that are ranked, clinics that are offered. But a little secret is that almost, any school that is part of the ABA, which is any school that you're going to want to go to that's accredited, that then you can sit for the bar and practice, is going to be required to have a lot of these things. And so to really dig into why a school is a good fit for you, this is a good starting point, but you have to dig deeper than that. When you see something like, okay, 35% ethnic diversity, that's great. That means that 35% of our, entering class from fall of 2020 self-identified as a minority. But what that doesn't tell you is what are the resources and the support systems for those students? What are the affinity groups that your law school has? Are they involved? Do they have connections with the administration? Are our voices heard? That's taking that second look into how is the school structured, but then what can it do for me as a student? And so as you're looking through these statistics, they're really important to know. I didn't know anything about medians. It's very helpful to know what the range of acceptability is at a school. So if you can see, I'm saying two different things. One is the median, which, as you can see, our GPA median was a 3.76. But the range of acceptability are really going to be those two bookends, right? The 25th to the 75th percentile. Looking at that range of GPA that is accepted is going to be more helpful for you to look and see, how competitive of an applicant am I? What can I do to improve those two items? And then what else can I use in my application to bolster it, to really make me a well-rounded applicant? And so we do a lot of counseling in our office. We do a lot of these presentations where we talk about these things. But remember, you are your best advocate. So the more that you can ask questions of the schools that you're interested in, the better information you're going to get, and also the closer you're going to get to finding a perfect match. So I always look at things in the reverse. People like to talk about what programs do we offer and what concentrations do we have, and all those really important things that are listed on our website. But I always wanted to know, what do your law students look like, and what do your lawyers look like? So when you graduate and you pass the bar and you get a job, what are they doing? Are they happy? Do they still love their school? I think that's the true sign of whether somebody had a great time in law school and was prepared by their law school and received all of the tools and resources they needed to be successful. And so I'm going to walk you through some of our current former or students that were at the law school. So if you notice at the very bottom when I'm going through these, I'm talking about different practice areas. Because when students ask us questions, they always ask, what practice areas do most of your students go in?
Oh, Miss Cashin,
Sorry, yep, I just got muted.
Oh.
Yeah. So, sorry. So practice areas are really great questions. But if you can see, it's at the bottom of my screen. What's really important is what are these students, doing, and what do they enjoy and where are they at? Something that we hope to shift in your focus when you come to law school is realizing that knowing what practice area you might be interested is helpful, but it's not everything because you might change your mind. You might really decide at some point that something in your home life is more important, and you need flexibility in your job. Your day-to-day experience in your job is going to depend on it's going to basically result in your happiness. And so practice area and focusing really hard on that is not going to the questions of what makes me, the most happy? What is my preferred work environment? Do I want to be working with people all the time? Do I want to be working with documents and I don't want to work with people all the time? Those are the questions that you'll have to start asking yourself. And so if you look, we have, students that are in all types of practice areas and all over, not only just Texas, but the country. We have students that are practicing big law in different markets. We have students that are doing public interest and public policy work. So our students that are really interested in advocating for different rights and for different marginalized groups. These, I think, probably is the practice area that students are the most passionate about, but also the most worried, right? Because of student loans, and usually these jobs don't come with a lot of money. But we work with our students to ensure that they get into great programs. And so 2 of our students on this page are part of positions that are funded by large law firms. And so the salary that they're receiving is really competitive and great, but they're getting to do the work that they love for these marginalized communities. So if you're interested in public interest, don't just ask, does your law school have, public interest type classes and coursework, but what are the programs that you have available for your students when they graduate or while they're in school? We have a public interest fellowship in which the students that are interested in doing those types of internships over the summer at most of these unpaid positions can apply to be a fellow. And so then they receive a stipend that they can use throughout the summer to offset those costs. Again, I'm going to say this over and over again, but it is asking that follow-up question, not just do you have these programs, but what else is there? What do you do to help your students succeed? And how do you partner with them so that they can, fulfill their goals and their dreams, but also by managing some of those realistic expectations, right? The other practice area that people don't talk about is out of state. What if I don't want to be in Texas? What if I want to move out of Texas and work somewhere else? Is that possible? Absolutely. And if you look, it's all sorts of practice areas, whether you want to do something kind of simple, like Allie on the right, she's our most recent graduate. She just went back to California. She's doing natural resources and environmental law. Or if you want to do something super specific, like going into JAG. Taishe got stationed in Georgia. We have a couple of other people that are stationed across the nation from JAG, but we also have people outside of the state and the nation that are, we have somebody in Germany right now that's stationed with Air Force JAG and somebody that's going to be stationed in Italy with Army JAG. And so just because you go to school in Texas doesn't mean you have to end up here, which I think used to be less easy for students to do because the Texas bar was Texas specific, and then trying to get being able to move to another state and get reciprocity was a little complicated. But Texas just accepted the UBE, which means that you can take this exam and score a certain score on certain parts of the bar, and then be able to transfer that score to other states that also accept the UBE. And the UBE is a uniform bar exam. And so it's making out-of-state opportunities much more in reach for our students. Judicial clerkships. Everybody comes in talking about, I want to do a judicial clerkship and I want to go into big law. But I think very few people know what that really means. Judicial clerkships can be lots of things. So it can be that stepping stone to a large law firm job. We have students that have done that. It could also be a long-term career. We have students who love working as judicial clerkships and clerks and love working in the law and think about wanting to be, you know, an attorney, a staff attorney for a court. And so like Jordan on the left, she had her judicial clerkship coming out of law school, which could have springboarded her into a large law firm, but she loved it so much she accepted a second term. And I think she'll probably try to find a place where she can be a staff attorney for a judge because she just loves research and writing. She loves seeing the cases that are coming through and making an impact on, you know, on our system in that way. So that's an opportunity. Or you can do things that are going to transition you into other jobs like Taylor and Megan. Megan went into a large law firm job, which is a pretty typical transition, and Taylor used that to pivot into a really competitive federal position. And so remember, again, when you're asking about judicial clerkships, it doesn't just have to be a stepping stone to a large law firm job. It can be an opportunity to do that long term or to do other types of really interesting type of work. So we talked about what the students look like, the types of jobs they get, and so how do they get those jobs? Our, you know, preparation of our students, I think, is unique because we have taken a look at traditional law school models, and we wanted to, you know, break that up and restructure it because traditional law school models focus really heavily on getting you through your first year, focused solely on academics, really making sure you understand that, and then from there wanting you to pivot and start thinking about the job search. But you're no longer college students. You're going to be professional students in a professional education program, and career starts the moment you walk through the door. And so we make sure when we're looking at you as first year students that we're saying, you know, your job is to do everything. Your job is to do well in your academics. It's to do well in your job search. It's to learn how to balance that. So that way, as you go through your 3 years, you are developing all of the skills and all of the opportunities to really become masters at organizing your time and being successful at the type of work that, you know, that lawyers are required to do, which is a lot of that time management and organization. And so as we help you do that in your first year, when you get to your first internship, your second year, you're just not as behind or as flustered in trying to manage new expectations because you've been doing that since the beginning. And we have a special program called Professional Identity that does a lot of that, you know, self-reflection and self-guided thinking that I was talking about at the beginning. It asks you the questions about, you know, what's important to you? What is your, you know, ethical framework? What are your goals going to be as a lawyer? What kind of impact do you want to have on your clients, on your community? And thinking about those things helps you structure that final question of what type of job am I looking for? And then what practice area am I that end up in? And what do I need to do to get all of the skills to become competitive in the market? And so it starts with the Aggie Network. It starts with choosing a school, like for us at A&M, that is backed by, you know, 500,000 former students. And those 500,000 aren't lawyers, right? There's only a small section of that are lawyers. But the Aggie Network is true in every industry. And so when we're looking for jobs in a certain city or a certain environment and we don't have an Aggie lawyer, we just find another Aggie, and then that Aggie knows a lawyer. And then that's how we get you to where you need to go. I can't emphasize how important it is to have a network that expects a lot from you, right? We want our Aggie lawyers to be really upstanding and wonderful lawyers that believe in core values and that do everything they can for themselves, for their colleagues, for their clients, and for their community. But then that in turn, because of that high expectation of excellence, there is a really easy way for Aggies to, you know, support each other and to help each other in the network, whether it's through mentorship, finding jobs, and creating that support system as lawyers. That leads, I think, to a lot of success and a lot of happiness knowing that you have a collaborative effort out there rooting for you, and it's not just you by yourself. Professional identity, I already mentioned, it's an actual course in your first year that's required that helps you figure out who you want to be as a lawyer. Then we have all these great programs, right? We have, you know, overtime concentrations and practice areas that are either your bread and butter programs like criminal law, family law, immigration law, real estate, business. Those are the things that like There's always great jobs in those areas because it's things that need to be done on a daily basis for clients. Then there's also up and coming areas like health law and natural resources and data privacy and public policy. And so those concentrations shift and change as we realize that there's a need for that type of representation in the world today. We also have global programs because as we move forward and as we globalize and as technology becomes a really important part of practicing law, you just have to be able to understand your law, other laws outside of our country that are going to impact your laws. And it just makes you a more creative lawyer when you understand comparative law. So our students get to travel to other countries and find out, how does Israel manage their water law problems? And then, how does the US do that? And what are the differences? What can we learn from that? Write a comparative analysis and become more creative in terms of your solutions. So we ask you to really think outside the box and realize that what you're doing impacts more than just, your current structure and your tiny bubble. So we want you to go outside of your bubble when you're at the law school. Internships, externships, clinics, they're all experiential learning that's required. But I think what's unique is that our students have, over 10 clinics to choose from. We push for our students to graduate with an internship, with an externship, and a clinic. So it's not a question of which one should I do. It's I should do all three, and what else can I be doing? Because you want to have as much access to other lawyers that can be mentors, other opportunities to see how you draft and do practical experience, to learn how to communicate with clients. All of these soft skills that are going to help you be a great lawyer and are going to help you figure out what you want to do. A lot of times these experiential opportunities help you realize what you don't want to do, which is great because then you know that you've crossed something off and you can move on to the next thing. And then finally, writing and advocacy. Those are the two most important skills. You're going to learn them in every class that you're in. You're going to learn how to write. You're going to learn how to speak and advocate. But our journals, like most journals, are pretty restrictive in terms of what students are allowed on it based on either a writing competition or whether you're in the top 10 or 15%. And so we added a rigorous writing component for all students. And so if you're unable to make the journals, the Law Review or the Journal of Property, you're actually going to do a similar article in one of your rig writing courses. And if you work closely with your faculty member, you can get published, which is essentially the point of being on Law Review or Journal. And so all of our students have the opportunity to learn those skills and get published and put that on their resume. And then our advocacy programs, again, we have your standard mock trial, moot court, dispute resolution teams. They're really competitive. We've won national titles, but because they're electives, only a certain number of students choose to do them. So we make sure that in your curriculum, you're actually going to have advocacy programming throughout your 3 years. And so whether you do mock trial, moot court, or dispute resolution, every student needs to know how to write trial briefs, how to do client mediation, how to do client counseling. And so we make sure that within your curriculum, you're getting exposure to all of those things so that you can come out ready to practice and ready to serve your clients as best you can. Back to statistics, because no matter what I say about, really learning about your school, asking those additional questions and getting a feel for the culture, students go back to statistics. So here's our most recent infographic. As you can see, we're on the rise in the rankings. That should mean something great, but again, no matter where the school is ranked, look at what they prioritize and what they value and see how that matches what you want. Our clinics, I think what's cool is that, over 60% of our students are involved in clinics, which means that they're competitive and students really want to do them, and we have a lot of activity within the clinics. We had a really amazing case that went up to see if the president would grant one of our clients clemency, and that got granted. There are very few of those cases that occur each year, and so we were really excited for the clients and for the students in that clinic. Our employment rate is where it should be. It's above 90% for our bar passage rate. We just got our September bar results back for our poor students that had to study through COVID and through the first bar exam getting canceled and pushed to September, and that was 95.56%. So in terms of preparing you for your profession, you can see through the statistics that we have the programming in place to help you succeed. But I do hope that you take some time outside of the statistics and really delve into your school and see what else they're doing for you besides just providing programming. I'm going to end on the power of the Aggie Network because, again, I think the reason people choose our school time and time again is because they join us, whether virtually or in person when it was allowed, and they get a feel for something that they can't explain. It's a community, it's a collaborative effort, and it's a commitment to your education while you're here, and then your reputation and career when you graduated. People ask me why I left practice to come and teach students and recruit students. And I say, you know, I did it. I was going to do it for a year while I figured out what I wanted to do, because I didn't do those information seeking things that I said that you should do while I was in school. And I wasn't really sure if where I landed in my job was where I wanted to be. And then, you know, 5 years later, I'm still here doing this because I believe in our students. I believe in our program. And I think it's a really great time to get involved in the practice of law and to shift and transition and help our profession be better, more inclusive, and more representative. So I would recommend, if you don't follow us anywhere, follow us on social media. Our Instagram and Facebook post mostly about our current students, former students, and incoming students. And so I think you can really see what the classes look like when you check out what our students are doing, why they chose the law school, and how they're involved. So that is it for my presentation. I am happy to open it up now, like Vanessa said in the chat. I would love to see faces if you guys want to show us your videos and unmute and ask questions that way.
Are there any brave souls that would like to ask questions?
Hi, I have a question.
Okay, can you tell me your name?
Deron Gaddison.
Okay, hi Deron.
Hi. My question is, for those of us who are non-traditional students, or like, I don't want to, the only word I can think of, phrase I can think of is life experiences, but how much is that tallied into the admissions process? Like me, like I have a 20-year military background, and within that DOD background, I've also spent some time with State Department, USAID, did some work with RDT&D and stuff like that. So I was just wondering, is that also taken into account when we do submit our applications for admission?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm like a tiny non-traditional student. I took a year off in between college and law school. But when I was in career services, I loved our non-traditional students because you come in with a professional background that maybe a lot of students going straight from college into law school are lacking. And so when we're looking at shaping our class and creating a diverse incoming class, and by diverse I mean in the broadest sense of the word, we want to see people with different backgrounds and experiences and all of that. And so we absolutely look for that, and we're wanting to recruit for that. What I would say would be, the thing that would make your application stand out the best if you're a non-traditional student is to really play those things up. I think a lot of times, just the word non-traditional is a detriment, right? Because it makes it sound like other. Like you're not the traditional student, and so then by default it's less, right? And it's not. And so when you're writing your personal statement, you don't have to reach back to your whole life story of like since you were a kid to where you got to this point. You can start from where you're at now. What are the things about your current professional experience that make you such a great candidate? When you're looking at your resume, don't shortchange me with a one-page resume. We don't have a page requirement for the resume. It can be 2 or 3 pages. Now, if it's going to be 3 pages, make sure it's worth reading the 3 pages. But you can add all of those details to those really great experiences that you had to highlight them and showcase them. And then your letters of recommendation, right? Find people that can speak to that lengthy professional background and the maturity and experience that you have to offer. And then you're really doing yourself a big favor for highlighting those things about you, rather than trying to, I see a lot of non-traditional students trying to like apologize for all of the experience they have and why they're not, the traditional student. And I just would recommend you don't waste your time doing that and really just highlight what you have, because we value it, and we appreciate it, and we really enjoy being able to admit all types of our students.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll go next if that's okay.
Sure. Can you tell us your name?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Hiba. First off, thank you so much. You pretty much covered all my questions and more. I'm excited to be applying for fall 2021. One of the things that I want to prepare for is the personal statement. So can you please elaborate on the personal statement, like in terms of what to avoid and what to focus on?
Sure. So, it's hard to give general guidelines for the personal statement because we want to see everybody's experiences and not minimize them or try to make every personal statement look the same. We purposefully make those prompts broad. The mistake I see most often is then that your response is broad. And so I kind of alluded that a little bit in my last answer when I'm saying you don't have to tell us your whole life story in 2 pages in the personal statement. Pick something specific about you. Pick a competence, an experience, something that you really think highlights the best part of you, and then write about that. So pick a specific topic and then write a lot about that, rather than a very broad topic, which is your whole life, and then only give us a little bit in each of those things. Does that make sense? I read a lot of personal statements where I read like, okay, I got like a basic history of this person's life, but I don't really know what they stand for or what they're trying to accomplish or why they think that they want to come here and be a lawyer, here from A&M. So read through your personal statement and see if you're really hitting on one major topic and then fully developing that topic, if that makes sense.
All right, that helps. Also, I have another question regarding recommendation letters.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with a Texas A&M, the law school alumni, but the thing is, I'm not sure if I should ask her or my teachers for the recommendation letters. Which
Okay.
one would be more preferable?
Sure. So again, it depends on each individual applicant. We require 2 letters of recommendation and we'll accept up to 3. So within that 2 to 3 letters, you're getting a lot of flexibility on who you can select. Earlier I mentioned, make your application give us a really good feel for you holistically. If you've worked and you've gone to school, we should see at least 1 from a faculty member and 1 from an employer. If they're all from faculty members, that's not really giving us anything different, right, in those 2 letters. So think critically about your experience and then how can you diversify that as much as you can in your application. And so, just kind of with this basic conversation, I would say I would encourage you to pick a faculty member that knows you really well and can speak to that. And then if the A&M alumni oversaw your work and really had a good feel for who you are, pick that person. But if there's somebody else that you worked with that isn't an A&M alumni but can speak, to your abilities more specifically, pick that person.
Yeah, she highly encouraged me to look into this school, and I did, and I really liked it. So hopefully I'll be asking a few of my professors and her for the recommendation letters. And I guess this is all I have. Thank you so much for answering these questions.
You're so welcome. We look forward to receiving your application.
Do we have any other questions?
I had a quick question.
Okay.
My name is Vanessa Garcia. I'm also applying for the fall 2021 cycle.
Okay.
You talked a little bit about the concentrations earlier. I was wondering, I'm interested in criminal law, but I'm also interested in, I guess, a few other things. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about the concentrations and like, I don't know, how that adds to your experience or et cetera. I don't.
Sure. No, that's a great question. So our concentrations are there to assist students who really know what they want to do. So let's say you get to law school and you go through your first year and you get, you take crim law, the course, because everyone's going to take that in their first year. And maybe you do your summer internship at a criminal law firm or some sort of criminal public policy position, and you cement that, like, yes, criminal law is what you want to do, when you graduate for the rest of your life. So the concentration allows you to take, certain courses, certain seminars, certain clinics and experiential activities that will, round out your criminal law experience and allow you to put that on your resume so that when you graduate, you can tell, employers that you're interviewing with that you have a criminal concentration and kind of what that entails. And so it's, it's an opportunity to really specialize and to utilize that as a resource and a tool for your job search. But let's say criminal law is a great example. Let's say you want to do criminal law, but you know that it also really heavily intersects with family law and immigration law. And I don't know, maybe you like all three and you haven't decided. You don't have to do the concentration. You can take classes in crim law, family law, immigration law that fall under the criminal law concentration category, but you just don't complete all those steps and all those requirements. And you graduate with the general JD, which everybody, is expecting and gets. And then you utilize your resume to highlight those internships, those classes you took for those different employers. And it gives you that flexibility to maybe apply to family law jobs or immigration jobs or criminal law jobs. And you use that versatility for your job search. So they're they're not required, and they're just there to assist students if they need it. But otherwise, you could go without a concentration and get all of the experience you need and get that, get that job when you graduate, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. I also had another quick question. You also talked about like the global experiences earlier. I was looking on your on the website, and I've noticed that you've actually had some students that have worked in like Japan, for example, but that's not one of the necessarily like listed countries that you guys normally have. What kind of, I guess, opportunities in that respect do you guys have?
Yeah, so the global programs, they basically are a course component that you do throughout the semester here at our campus here. And then for 2 weeks in the summer, our students go and they do a lot of that practical research experience. So they go to law firms, they go to government agencies, and they do that kind of exploratory experience, and then they're able to come back and write their comparative law paper. Based on those experiences, we've had opportunities sometimes for students to stay on for an internship. And so Kobe Steel in Japan was one of those opportunities. We've had, I think, 2 students that took that opportunity and stayed and worked with them, and we did kind of like a trade. And so I think most lawyers choose to practice in the US, and if they do international law, will practice here and then work with other countries in that setting. But there are some students, and it's a small group of students, so we work with those kind of like if it were an independent study and one-on-one to try to get them placements outside of the US if that's what they're seeking. And so what you saw there was, kind of that combination of those individual students, their interest, and the opportunity being available based on our relationship with that organization.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. These are all great questions.
Hi, my name is Serene, and I'm also applying fall 2021. COVID has made me forget all the years, but I was wondering what factors can improve an applicant's admission and scholarship chances beyond numbers, and maybe more specifically, what are some different things that when you're looking through an application that really stand out to you or that you look for in each applicant that you feel would be a good fit for A&M?
That's a great question. It's so complicated because, we don't start off with like a list of, okay, we want these qualities or like these types of experiences or like these things for our entering class. We of course have our core values, our A&M core values, which kind of are in the back of our minds when we're reviewing applications and we're looking for students that are committed to selfless service and excellence and things like that. But when we're reading these applications, we review the application holistically. So the way that looks internally is that we get the application and we read through the way that it's printed out for us, the application and the CAS all together. We're not just looking at numbers and then making decisions. And so it ends up being the applications that stand out are the ones that take all of those individual puzzle pieces and put them together for us to make a holistic applicant that is, I think, committed to what they're wanting to do, which can be lots of things because we have a lot of practice areas that we want to increase interest in, but that sound like they know what they're doing and why they want to be at Texas A&M. So things that you could do, for example, is we have an addendum called Why Texas A&M that you can submit with your application. And to give an example, an applicant that says, I really want to go to Texas A&M because it's in Fort Worth and I've grown up in Fort Worth my whole life. And so, location would be very important to me. It's great. An applicant that would stand out better than that would be somebody who says, I'm interested in Texas A&M law because I want to do, natural resources, and I attended your natural resources, seminar, or I reviewed on the website the work that Professor Eckstein's doing, and I think that's really impressive. And right, so one of them is just like convenience, right? Like I would like to be in Fort Worth, and the other one is showing research and planning and commitment and passion. And so those things are hard to quantify until we read a whole application together. So I would just make sure that you're really advocating for what you're interested in and why you're interested in it in your application. And I think that helps the reader want to bring you here so that you can do those things when you get here, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That helps a lot. One last question. I was wondering if, because of COVID, are classes online? Are they in person? Is it a hybrid? How has COVID affected a lot of, law school activities that were happening before, and now it's probably a little harder to conduct as normal?
Right. No, that's a great question. And I will say before I answer that this changes each semester, and it could change, as you all know, it can change kind of within the semester. Currently, the goal is to continue to have a hybrid program, which is what we have. We have as many classes as we can safely in person by following, being able to follow 6 feet apart between our students, having safety between our classes crossing and the time that it takes to get to one class to another. We're utilizing the Sheraton Hotel next door and their big ballrooms for some of our classroom settings, with the priority being our first-year students. We believe at the school that it's really critical for a lot of that in-person learning. And so that's been facilitated, as best as it can safely. And then from there, upper level classes and things like that where there are smaller sessions and all of that have gone online to offset that. And then finally, there is an opportunity for students to request the accommodation of going online, for health and other reasons. And so it's kind of a combination of start with as many, in person as we can to facilitate learning. And then from there, like safety, consideration of our individual students, spacing, things like that. And I think that we've been able to maintain a lot of safety on campus in terms of the spread of the virus. We haven't had any cases that have been linked to transmission at the school. And so as long as that holds, I think that will be how we will continue to move unless there's some sort of change. A&M College Station is heavily involved with the entire contact tracing and our research as it pertains to the vaccines. And so we get a lot of that information from College Station and just keep up with it as safely as we can. And there are a ton of town hall meetings and things like that that the dean holds so that he can get a feel for how the students and faculty and staff feel about the current setting, and then what changes might need to be implemented.
All right, well, thank you so much. Looking forward to applying to A&M this cycle.
You're welcome. We look forward to receiving your application.
Okay, so I actually have a question for you, Ms. Cashin. So personally, and I feel like this is actually probably a pretty general concern that most students looking to go to law school have, is the financial aspects. So how does Texas A&M Law compare to other law schools in terms of cost of tuition, maybe what kind of scholarships or grants they might offer, what programs they might have to help pay off that debt once we're out of school? Just there's, I don't know, any information about that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As it pertains to tuition, we are a public institution, so our tuition, ranks pretty, I think, great in terms of the other public institutions that are in Texas. Our current In-state tuition is $31,900 per year. 85% of our students receive some form of tuition waiver, which is what we call our admissions office scholarships. And so our office works really hard to minimize the cost of attendance for students, not only with providing tuition waivers for tuition, but then also working really hard to garner scholarship opportunities for current students. And so while I think we scholarship really well at the outset, there are also a ton of opportunities for students once they've been admitted and once they've matriculated, which can continue to offset those costs. In terms of grants and financial aid, the FAFSA is your first step for that. There is a difference between college and graduate school loans. And so there's less assistance, from the government in that sense. But what I would recommend is, as you're looking at the schools you're applying to, all of us have, our financial aid officers. They can speak with you about your individual experience, as well as the opportunity to look at Access Lex, which is a national database and a non-for-profit organization that works on providing data about schools and law students and debts, and then also programming, how you can manage that when you graduate. And so our scholarship application is the same as our current application, and then we generally offer admission with the scholarship offer at the same time. So we try as best as we can to let you know early, to give you a fair tuition waiver offer based on your application submitted. We keep that same offer for 3 years as long as you have a 2.33, which is just good standing. So we don't have a high GPA cutoff that makes you lose your scholarship, at some point in your second or your third year. And then we have a lot of those internal scholarships that can assist once you've been admitted. That's kind of the plan of action. And again, if you care about like ratings or statistics or things like that, Pre-Law Magazine rated us an A- as compared to other, national law schools.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any other questions? We do have time for one more.
I guess I'll go again. I have a third question. It's me again. So my question is, and this is just in terms of me preparing, how long after I apply can I expect like a decision to be rendered?
So it depends. I mentioned our application deadlines that we have posted. So like if you apply by any of those, there's generally a decision deadline that is also on our end. So if you apply for like the December 7th application, you'll receive a response by January 10th. If you fall outside of those kind of decision and application deadline groupings, it can be anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks or longer based on the cycle. Because we do rolling admissions, if we're sending decisions when it's slow, it can be a shorter wait time. If you're in the middle of like January to February, which is the most difficult time, it takes longer. It really can vary a lot. We have an online status checker, so as soon as you submit your application, you'll get updated through that, and you can always reach out to our office and ask us, where your application is, what status it is in, after you check your online status checker, so you don't drive us crazy. And we try to get back, to students as quickly as we can, depending on where we're at in the cycle.
Alrighty, thank you so much again.
Mm-hmm. And for anybody who had questions, who maybe you're too shy to ask the question, as I mentioned, on our Connect With Us page, you can sign up for a one-on-one appointment, so you can do it that way. We also are going to host a couple of more information sessions on our side, so you can sign up for those and ask questions through there. But don't let being shy keep you from asking questions, because there's a lot of good information out there for you if you just ask.
Okay, I guess final call for any last minute questions. If you feel a little bit brave. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I did want to say thank you to Ms. Cashin for taking the time out of her day to walk us through the application process and just kind of talking about what the culture is like at Texas A&M Law. I actually personally was like kind of considering it. I was like, oh, like Texas A&M seems like a good choice. But now I know for sure that I want to apply there. So thank you so much for really selling it and giving us all of the information we needed, answering our questions. And as I said, if anybody has any more questions before we conclude the meeting. Okay. Well, thank you again, and we really appreciate the time that you took.
Thank you all so much for having us. We look forward to seeing your applications or all of you on any of our information sessions moving forward.